In today's video, I'm going to share with you my splurge worthy art supplies. Hey everyone, welcome to another video. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Irit. I'm a watercolor and mixed media artist. I'm based in Austria in Europe, and on my channel I share my love for watercolors and mixed media, and I talk a lot about watercolors and mixed media. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't, you can give it a thumbs down. Everything to help me figure out what you enjoy watching. And of course, subscribe. I would love to have you here. It has been a long time goal of mine on my channel to not only share the joy of watercolors, but also kind of help people navigate their way through buying supplies. I have made all the mistakes, I bought all the things, and if you are, if you have a large budget, if you enjoy being surrounded by lots and lots of art supplies, if you feel comfortable, buying and trying, that is fantastic. But I felt at some point that it was just too much, and even though being on YouTube, usually hauls and product reviews are the most watched videos. So it does kind of, it motivates me and I'm sure other YouTubers to try a lot of things. And of course, that is also helpful. When I want to buy something, I always check on YouTube if there are reviews and what people think about it. But I also recently my kind of YouTube homepage has been really bombarded with these huge art supplies hauls. And I also sometimes enjoy watching them, but at the end of the day, I just feel it's like, it's just too much. It's too much. And next week I want to film a video on things that I actually don't think are worth spending money on, or maybe more accurately kind of recommendations on what I think are good choices to make when you are kind of, I guess, relatively earlier in your watercolor journey. What I find is usually people that have been painting for years develop very specific preferences and they kind of know what they like. But it's very hard at the beginning when you don't really know what you like and you want to try everything and you think there are a lot of things out there. And also, probably a lot of us think that if we have certain products, that will make us better artists. And that's true to some extent because, for example, I think you should get artist grade watercolor if you're serious about watercolors. But it's like if you have a good brand of watercolors and someone you really admire uses a different brand, I'm gonna say from my personal experience, when you get to that level of like artist grade watercolors, it's pretty much really good across the board. And I also want to do a video about that, just like kind of doing a general review of major watercolor manufacturers, kind of just like a 101, what I find the strength and weaknesses of these brands are. So if you want to see those videos, let me know in the comments. But today I do want to just kind of highlight a few things that I think are worth splurging on, and also, as always, explain my reasoning. This is of course only my opinion. Hopefully, maybe you will find some items that you also want to add to your collection or splurge on. So let's get into it. I'm gonna start first with paint and then move on to like brushes and paper and other things. And I'll try to limit the hand gestures to an acceptable Middle Eastern Mediterranean dosage, which is pretty high. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, and these are all things that I have bought and I felt really kind of, paid for themselves with the joy that they brought me, and sometimes like the development that they allowed in my watercolor skills and journey. So the first thing I want to mention is my first artist grade set, which was a beautiful 24 half pan set from Sennelier, and I'll put a picture on the screen hopefully. But this is usually what I recommend if you have the budget for a starter set. These range between, I think most major brands have these kind of sets for around somewhere between 80 and 100 euros. That kind of thing. It really depends where you are in the world and what brand you're looking into. But I'm in Europe, and actually Sennelier is a very affordable brand in Europe. And this was my first set of artist grade watercolors. This was a joy. This was a joy to have. Now, what I specifically love about the Sennelier paint, first of all, I find the formula very easy to work with. It is a honey-based paint, but it's not like super sticky like Engram, and the paint activates easily, but it's not like insanely rich like schminke can be. And so I find it's a really good kind of in-between formula that's not too dry, it's not too sticky, it's not too wet, and I really enjoyed it. Now also the color choice for that set, even though it's kind of a basic set, it has everything you need, but it also has like a few special colors, or colors that are just not usually in a 24 kind of basic half pan set. So I used that for a long time. Then I got a bunch more of the Sennelier paints and a bunch more of other colors, but for that first set, it was just like beautiful, and I loved it, and it was really kind of a luxury item that, had I not been like on YouTube and really, you know, just like wanting to try all the things, I could have used that set for a very long time. And it was really a great beginning to an introduction to kind of the best supplies in watercolor. That's how I felt. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about that I think is worth the splurge are the dot cards from Daniel Smith. Now, a few brands have these. Now, this is not like crazy expensive, but for the amount of paint, or like, you know, just like a few dot cards, like for a few swatches, I know some people can get a few paintings from this, but it's not a lot of paint, at least for me, unless you paint really small. But, you know, it is kind of a substantial amount. I think they cost like over 20 euros here for just like swatching the range. However, especially if you're outside the US, Daniel Smith is really expensive, and buying these dot cards and seeing how the color actually looks as opposed to images online or videos online, seeing how it looks, seeing how it behaves, I believe will save you a lot of money in the long term. And also, again, especially if you're outside the US, and buying Daniel Smith means you're paying for, you know, import, customs, all those things. There are a lot of colors in the Daniel Smith range which are very standard colors. Now, there are a lot of colors that are, in my opinion, unique and worth the splurge, but you won't necessarily know it until you see it, and actually having a swatch can be really helpful. And, you know, you can just like slowly grow your collection, and this just minimizes the risk of buying colors you won't end up using. Now, in the last few years, Daniel Smith started also making half pans, so that is very helpful because, you know, you can try more paint, but still their entire range comes only in tubes. The half pans are only for certain colors, and I think only in sets. I don't know if you can buy them open stock. And so I really recommend just, you know, swallow that pill, buy a dot card. And if you're interested in another brand that has these, I think Holbein makes them, Winsor & Newton maybe, I think also Schmincke, then I would definitely suggest picking up those dot cards before starting to purchase tubes of paint. I think that's worth the splurge. The third item I want to mention is I'm gonna say the Jean Haines Daniel Smith set, but I actually mean those curated sets. And I really think once you have a basic artist grade set, I don't recommend buying another basic set from a different brand. I really recommend searching for those curated sets. M. Graham has those, Daniel Smith has those, and I think other brands like Aquarius does that. I think White Nights also. That is a really great way of trying colors that are not usually or always included in those basic sets. And I really think that's worth the splurge. It's an opportunity to try new colors, new color schemes, and a new brand. And that is what I would recommend. So for example, if you have like a basic set from, let's say, Winsor & Newton, and you want to try Daniel Smith, I wouldn't buy a basic set from Daniel Smith. I would buy one of their artist curated sets. Look for a color palette that you like. That's what I like about the Jean Haines set, that it really has some unique colors that you won't find in a basic set. So I think that's worth the splurge. Okay, let's move on to other things, and I'm gonna talk about brushes. And I actually have just one splurge worthy item because the rest of the brushes that I like are actually very affordable. But I do have some splurge worthy items in my opinion, and these are my beautiful handmade Tracy Lebenzon brushes. These were sent to me for free. I was requested to try them and review them, and I got these about a year ago. Was it? Oh, maybe 2 years. With the pandemic in the middle, right? Maybe 2 years. Time is weird now. And I have used them pretty much every time I sit down and paint ever since. And these are expensive in my book with my budget, but I wouldn't recommend them if I didn't think they were completely worth the splurge. So these are my favorite ones, and the ones that I always grab, especially this one. This is the Wangi Orange Synthetic. It costs $55, and mine has a 4 centimeter long bristles. I know that there are a lot of options. So mine is, I want to say it's 4 centimeters or 4.5. That's the one that I have, the one that I love. And then the big mama for larger paintings is the large soft white synthetic, which is $120. And they look like magic wands, and they're very unique. What I love about these is that, first of all, they're very light, which is, I don't know, for me, it's a very enjoyable experience to paint with them, not holding like a super heavy brush. And what I also find with these is that I feel I get unique, expressive brush strokes, which is something I love to do in my paintings, as you can see here as an example. I really love those, and I feel this particular combination of these synthetic fibers, the orange ones and the white ones, they hold enough water to paint freely and also create kind of more juicy washes the beginning of a painting, but they don't hold too much water, so I don't find that I get like these huge puddles that I sometimes get with the more like squirrel-like synthetic fibers. They're usually colored black or brown. And so this is a particular combination that works really, really well for me. And many times with this brush, in most of my paintings, I will bring in at the last stages a thinner brush, but this one almost gets me there. I mean, it's thin enough, and the bristles are not super absorbent, that I can get a lot of expressive, almost like dry brush or very intense color application with this brush, and I only need like a little bit more from a very thin brush. And so I really love these. Yes, I didn't pay for them, but knowing what I know now, I would absolutely pay for them. And I do have an affiliate link, but again, I just want to tell you, I receive offers from all kinds of art supplies companies, and usually I say no. And then also if I try something and if I review it, you know, maybe I have a good first impression and I don't find anything wrong with the brush or anything like that, but if I don't keep coming back to it, I'm not going to promote it. And so for these, I do get a commission if you order these using my name, but I also have a discount code for you and you get 20% off. I'm pretty sure it's 20% now. It was 10% for a little while, but I think now it's back to 20%. So you also get a discount, and I think it's like a win-win-win situation. And yeah, I wouldn't recommend these if I didn't feel wholeheartedly that they are worth the splurge. And yeah, if I could only have one, it would definitely be this one. I just love it and it's my favorite. I paint with it pretty much every time I sit down and paint, so I guess that says something. And I have a lot of brushes. Let's talk a little bit about paper. First thing I want to say about paper that is worth splurging on is kind of basic, but that is to buy lots of paper. And paper, I think, is one of the things, I think people probably feel more comfortable spending money on brushes and paint because brushes can last you a lifetime or decades and paint goes a long way. But paper, you can kind of go through it fast, especially if you paint a lot. And that's why I think if you find a paper you love, personally, I don't use like super expensive paper because I found it works for me. But if you can afford it, buy lots of paper. Just like having, not like insane amounts, because watercolor paper can actually go bad. It loses the sizing, or in the process of making it, it can lose its qualities over time. But I like to have, you know, like 3 extra pads of watercolor on hand, so that I don't have to feel precious about the paper. I don't have to like preserve it. So I would say if you find a paper you really, really love, have a couple of extra blocks of it on hand. I know a roll of paper is actually a very, very economical choice, but it doesn't really work for me. The whole storing it, stretching it, cutting it, everything. I thought about it many times and it is a really, really good choice. You get a lot of paper for your dollar, but I don't think it necessarily fits everyone. But if you think it might fit you and the paper that you love comes in a roll, it's usually like 10-meter rolls, and yeah, you get a lot of paper, you might consider splurging on a roll of paper. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to papers are sketchbooks. And I have 2 kind of recommendations here. Now, the first one was one of the joyous purchases that I've made like years ago, and that was the large Khadi sketchbook. Large watercolor sketchbooks are kind of hard to find and they can be expensive, but this one I think is very reasonably priced, and I found it was a joy to work in it. You really feel like you're, you know, like you're an artist. You have this huge sketchbook and it just gives you space, and you can really, like, you know, put that color on there, and I don't think it's that expensive for what you get. And also, as opposed to like a pile of papers, it's really fun to look at, it's very easy to store, and the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's how I feel about sketchbooks. So it's really just nice to have a large sketchbook. Now, this one is actually really large, that if you made a piece that you love, it's also stitched, so it's really easy to take out the pages. If you wanted to take it apart and then frame some pieces, you could absolutely do that without too much trouble. And yeah, I just think if you feel a little bit confined in a smaller size paper pad or sketchbook, then you might want to splurge on a large sketchbook. And I love the Khadi ones because they look handmade. I mean, they are handmade, I think, but they have that handmade look and feel. They're not like too serious, and yeah, you get a lot of paper. So I got mine from Jackson's, I want to say. I'll take a look if it's still available because I haven't bought one in years. But yeah, that one was a real luxurious item for me that I really enjoyed. The other one that I want to mention is the Fabriano Vergatone, and this one is just like, it's a little bit hard to get. I've only found it on the Fabriano boutique, and it's crazy expensive there, and there's shipping, but you can also find it at Cult Pens in the UK, and they have flat rate shipping or free shipping if you spend over, I don't know, like £70 or something like that. And yeah, these are just beautiful sketchbooks, and I find it very inspiring and inviting when I have a sketchbook that I love. And I love to travel with these sketchbooks. They just bring me joy. The paper is lovely. It's thin, but it holds water beautifully. I think it's a little bit, it has a bit of a different feel to it, and I've recommended this several times on my channel, and I've only heard one person say they didn't really like it, but everyone else that gave me feedback were very excited about it. So it seems to be a crowd pleaser. You can just buy a small one and see what the fuss is all about. I think these sketchbooks are gorgeous, and they're really my favorite at the moment. Okay, couple more things that I think are worth the splurge. So the first one, it's a little bit hard for me to recommend it because currently it's pretty much sitting on my desk unused, but it is one of my more like precious items that I really love, and I think is really luxurious, and at least the experience of using it, it's not insanely expensive, but it is more expensive than the palette that I'm using, which is my red one, my perfect watercolor palette. But I did use that, the other palette I'm going to mention, for a long time, and yeah, I think it would for sure work for a lot of people. And that is my Jackson's 19 Wells Studio palette, and this is a ceramic palette, and it's just beautiful. I mean, there is nothing like working on a ceramic surface. It is an entirely different experience than mixing paint on a plastic or a metal palette, in my opinion. Now, I'm saying that as someone who currently uses a plastic palette with a metal insert in it, just because it works better for me. The problem for me with the ceramic palettes is that it's made for pouring out tube paint, and I like to mix things around, add new paints, try new paints, kind of rotate the colors in my palette. I have a few go-tos that are always there, but I also like to keep it kind of fresh and interesting. And I just found that with a set palette that only has wells that I can pour paint into, it was either just like keep pouring like very small amounts, which is annoying to me, or having no space and ending up kind of wasting paint. But I still think it's a wonderful product, and I'm sure it would work for a lot of people. And right now, if I had to buy mine again, or I wanted a studio palette, I would probably try either the one that has more wells. Jackson has another version that has another row in the bottom of wells. I'd probably get that one, or I would get the Stephen Quiller, I think it's a square palette with a big circle in the middle, because that one looks like fun, and I think actually the positioning of the paint would work well for the way that I use color now. So I would definitely consider that. They take more space, they're heavy, and as I said, I think they're only worth it if you use most of the time kind of a limited palette, limited to the number of wells, which is not like very small. I mean, there are quite a lot of wells, but yeah, and you mostly use tube paint. but it's a beautiful, beautiful palette, and I do think it kind of takes your watercolor experience to the next level. But again, I currently don't use mine, so it wasn't the best fit for me, but for a while I really, really enjoyed it. Okay, two more things I want to mention. So one is what you see here, and this is just a beautiful frame that I bought from my local art store, and it has, you know, proper wood frame with beautiful glass, and this is something I haven't done for my own art like ever. I have printed it on canvas, which I like, and I also definitely recommend, and you can make like big canvases. You can use one of these services. There are quite a few websites that do this, print on demand. You just upload a good quality photo of your artwork and you can print it on posters, different products, but if you want to hang your artwork, then you can print it on canvas. And I do recommend that. And it's just like the idea of filling your home with your artwork is something that I haven't done yet, and I'm just like slowly getting there, because I didn't feel my artwork was good enough or something, but I feel differently now, and I do hope to kind of hang it more in my home. And having really nice frames is one of these things. It's something I didn't want to splurge on, and I'm still kind of gathering the courage to buy a larger one for my larger paintings. So it is a bit of a hassle when, you know, you're painting with watercolors on paper. You need to frame them properly. Unlike a canvas that you can just hang, you don't have to frame it. But if you want to splurge on yourself and kind of give yourself permission to display your artwork, first of all, paintings just look better. Looks more legit, looks more, you know, like a finished piece when you put them in a beautiful frame. And yeah, so look through your pile of paintings, pick your favorite, and then treat yourself to a beautiful frame and display it in your home. It will make you feel really, really good, and I need to get a few more to do that with my paintings. And the last thing I want to mention is an art book. Splurge on a beautiful art book that inspires you and makes you happy. So my most kind of precious, expensive book in my collection of art books is The Color Tile about, gosh, I hope I'm not butchering her name. The artist is called Tile Duncan, and she's a disturbingly young-looking artist, American artist, and I just find her use of color and artwork is just incredible. I pretty much love everything she does, especially her beach scenes. And yeah, probably her beach scenes are my favorite, but it's just like the colors. Her colors are extraordinary, and I love, love, love this book. It was expensive, but so beautiful to have on hand and to be inspired and just like open it and kind of inhale all those gorgeous colors. I love it, and I'm really, really happy I have it. I'm currently on the lookout for, I want equally inspiring book from some sort of textile artist. I know Sheila Hicks seems to be like everyone's favorite, so I might grab that. But someone who just uses, I'm very, very into, I'm doing crochet and weaving and knitting, so I'm really, really into also using textile, yarn, that sort of thing. And I would like to have a very beautiful inspiration book from a textile artist. So if you have recommendations, leave them below. And the last thing I will mention is something that I don't have, but maybe one day, which is like a really nice, sturdy easel. Is that how you pronounce it? This is a small table easel that is really lovely, and it was a present from my husband for one of my birthdays, and like years ago, more than 10 years ago. and I love it, and I have painted a lot on it, but right now it's more of a display piece for my videos backgrounds, which I really enjoy. But I would like to have like a really, really nice one. They are expensive, and currently I don't really have the space for it. But yeah, one day I would like to paint more standing up, and I can do that also next to the table, but my table is just like standard height, so it's a little bit too low. And yeah, that is something that is on my wish list, not in the budget, not in the cards at the moment, but maybe someday. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Of course, I would love to hear your splurge-worthy art supplies, and I'm sure other viewers would love to read what you bought, loved, enjoyed, and thought it was worth every, you know, cent you spent on it, because I know the list of stuff that I don't think were worth the cash is much, much longer, and I actually have a video about that, which many of you have seen and enjoyed, so I'm happy about that. That is it for now. That was a lot of talking. I will see you next week with more videos. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Bye bye.